Okay, guys, this is going to be my review of the Watchmen movie that came out in 2009, directed by Zack Snyder. And I really liked it. I think it was a very brilliant movie. I kind of love when different kind of genre films kind of dwindling through U.S. history. I think it is, or just history in general. It was interesting with like the kind of Cold War coming to its heat, on top of I just like exploring. I love like the non-linear storytelling that Zach goes for with his films, especially in this film, because it's like I'm not the biggest fan of traditional origin stories because it's like they just become so formulaic. You understand the story, the love interest, the someone important in his life, their life dies, and yada 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 yada. But this puts a twist on that. It's where a lot of the times with origin stories, the origin part of it, a lot of it has nothing to do with the overall story. It has to do with our characters. But when a film like Watchmen that has so many characters, so many interactions, because I feel like what this film does really good is explore the characters, and I think it's a very character based film where you get these great interactions with these different characters on what's going on where it's like it starts out simple of just one of their superheroes gets killed, and Rorschach is investigating that. But then it gets heated when you understand about you know how these superheroes were disbanded and people start to hate them, and how they weren't helping in the war, and how now about this whole now that the now that nukes are in the question of a nuclear war, and how does Dr. Manhattan have to do with it. And I think by telling the story non-linearly, it helps the film, because it's like there's so many different characters that you want to see their backstory to, that they show key moments in their backstory. They don't just show, Dr. Manhattan's relationship with his wife, the whole the entire their entire relationship. No, they show key moments when they see fit in the film. When the wife first shows up, okay, that's a good time to go into Manhattan's relationship and how he became Dr. Manhattan. Okay, that makes sense. And then how his relationship to the girl, and all that stuff. And I think that's kind of what I enjoyed with this. I enjoyed this in Man of Steel, where it's like it's not just your traditional origin story where you see him growing up and on the farmstead. No, you show key moments of Clark growing up, and you see that here with Rorschach, and him getting bullied, and what else? You didn't really see a lot of Night Owl when he was growing up. But I mean, yeah, again with the girl, I forgot the girl's name. I forgot the girl, the main girl in the movie. And how she figures out that the comedian was her father, and seeing you know um the comedian and her mother, in a bad relationship. And again, detailing key moments of every character, key moments from the comedian's point of view, or not point of view, but key moments of the comedian. And because it's like, because you start off in the film with the superheroes already exiled, you understand, so what did they do wrong? And you kind of detail, in the world that allowed superheroes to be a thing. And I love, the twist of Adrian, being the villain, and kind of how he kind of what's hard about it is that he went public as being a hero, and kind of how that plays off of all of this. And I think it's very clever, and I think the shots, the imagery. I remember the shot where it's like Rorschach takes one of the people. I like the prison. The prison scene was cool, but when he takes one of the prisoners in the prison scene, throws him into the bathroom, and then the door swings open, and you see him punching him. Swings closed, swings open, and then on a fifth swing, you see the prisoner's head on the toilet, cracked, bloody. It's just those great visual cues, or just visual choices, where it's like you don't see actually Rorschach beating up the prisoner, but you see the door close open and close open and close until you see the guy's bloody head on the floor. It was great, and kind of, I guess, kind of exploring the characters. I feel like, again, I said this before, but exploring the characters' relationship. Night Owl with, I keep want to saying Katana, but it's definitely not Katana. and the girl and John and the girl's relationship, and then ultimately fighting Adrian and Rorschach just standing for what he believes is right, that he believes heroes can be allowed, and John having to realize that humanity is not his path, is not his choice, and having to leave them all as he thinks that a god does not fit among this world, that he does no longer cares about him. Well, there's no real villain. It's just that there's in a sense a whole group of heroes, or not heroes. They're all villains, and in many ways, because they're not your ideal Superman. They're not your Batman or your Wonder Woman. These are very much people who were in their prime, unlike everybody else, heroes, deemed by many, only for them to kind of fall out of fame and kind of trying to live their life. And again, where the plot, there's so many different, the plot of this idea of nuclear war and John, and this idea that people are targeting the other heroes, and him being in, Adrian trying to set them up, trying to have no heroes, so that, when war happens, he can build a better future. I think what makes this plot is, again, it has to do with the characters, where you see how each of our heroes, take that kind of plot, take this mystery element, take this idea of Adrian behind all of it, and kind of taking that, and you see each person's perspective, and you see their relationship at key moments of their team relationship in the past. Then you see them and how they relate to the present. And what I love about, again, this non-linear storytelling point of view is that it all feels fresh when it needs to. When you see them talking about, because if they told this linearly, when you see Rorschach being interviewed or being interrogated by the cop, and he talks about his past, and he talks about what the mask represents, they would in between cut to Rorschach's past, right? And what I enjoyed about that is that they cut it when it needs fit, because I think what so many films, origin films, or just films in general that go linearly, is, for example, if this film was told linearly, you might see the Rorschach getting beaten up in like the first 10 minutes. But you wouldn't think to remember that. That's probably part of it you don't remember. And so I think when they call that back, it isn't something you really remember. So they give it to you in a fresh way. And because I think you see, especially for me in 2020, where you see so many different comic book film origin stories, it's fresh to see a new take on it. A take where it doesn't just have to be, the team unites and fights villains. No, it's complex. Because they deal with regular history. They deal with the question that Man of Steel, or not Man of Steel, but they deal with the question that Batman vs. Superman deals with, where it's like, should we accept that some people will try to be above the law? Can we accept a guy who can blow up half the world with touching, with feelings, with his mind, Can we accept that these people are trying to help us, but are they helping? And I think these questions are great questions, and great, philosophical questions, really. And there's just so many characters, but I think they handle it very nicely, because you don't see them work as a team a lot, because they are not a team. They're more of a group of people who all have something in common, who all try to help the world, but maybe, through this film, start to realize that they can't help the world, that the world doesn't need helping, but not necessarily that it doesn't need helping, but that they necessarily shouldn't help. And you see that. I love Dr. Manhattan struggle with that, because when you really think about it, nobody else has superpowers. It's Dr. Manhattan, And you see what he's been through when you need to see what he's been through. When he's in the interview, when he's on, the talk show, that's when you go into his past. And so when you go into his past, when you see his future, when you go into the past, it's all the more heartbreaking, because you know what he is to become. You know what his wife is to become. You know their broken relationship. You know his struggle, but you see how he got there. And I think that's something you see again. I'll make the comparison to Man of Steel because I feel like these films are very different in so many different ways. But with their approach to storytelling, with Zack Snyder's approach to storytelling, in both, he'll give you key moments of our characters' past. Because again, Man of Steel, what it does nice is detail into the characters, but this film does the same thing. Where I love the character interactions and how you have this complex plot and a complex time for the world with complex characters who are not just your typical heroes, and how they deal with that, and where when they go into their past, and then you'll see what happens in the past, and you'll see in the future, in our present, how our characters react to that. And I think that was brilliant because it's like, again, so many films, they just show you the whole, like, a lot of films are just like, oh, one big origin story, and you just get, so cliche in that, and I like, switching things up in that sense, where it's like, you get that idea of, you don't show every scene of their past, you show key moments, and individualize our characters, because these, the girl in the film isn't Black Widow. Rorschach isn't Batman, Adrian ain't no Loki, And in a good way. In a way that these are not. I never looked at this film as a comic film. I just looked at it as a really, very much a I guess, a film that deals with, huge issues at that time and at that world. But just the imagery of, like, again, like the smiley face and the blood. And then you got, this stuff with, and I love the line of, oh no, I'm not stuck here with you. Or no, I'm not locked up here with you. You're locked up here with me. I love that line. And the unmasking, and I love the fight, the police versus Rorschach fight. I like, the prison break stuff. But the fighting never was, the action was never the strongest part. It was just the philosophical questions that this film acts with nuclear war, and what should John do, and how should they, should these heroes, be in hiding, and Nixon in the mix, and, talking about Vietnam War, and they really tackle, I don't honestly think, so many different issues in the 70s, and maybe going on now. It's crazy. How of this kind of intertwines, and the great, comedic things, great lines like that line, and just clever. It's clever with its storytelling, with its non-linear storytelling, but on top of that, the character interactions, the dialogue, the writing, the lighting, with it's almost like black and white, a lot of it, where it's not really black and white, but I think the imagery evokes the time period. It evokes how it is a dark kind of place, early 70s and whatever, Vietnam War, and America dropping out of it. It's crazy, I think. But again, it is 2 hours and 43 minutes long. So because you can have so much in 2 hours and 43 minutes, including diving into each character, because again, it would seem very weird if you took this film and put it into chronological order. It would feel very, very weird. They don't do that. They show the origin story, or not the origin story, because it is, an ensemble film, which is a great ensemble film. It is a great film, but they detail it at, unique moments. So yeah. But I guess a few criticisms is, this film feels very down to earth. So when, they are in their hero outfits, and, Night Owl, and especially Adrian. When Adrian fights, it's very weird because it's, in slow motion, and he's doing stuff that normal humans, and even people who train their whole lives in combat couldn't do. And I'm like, are you sure you don't have powers? No, I think I can't remember. I feel like they said he took some syndrome. I don't know. But yeah, I also love the line. It's like, do you think... I love when Adrian goes into his plan, and then he says, okay, I'm going to stop you. Rorschach says, I'm going to stop you. And then Adrian says, do you think I'm a comic book villain? my plan already started 35 minutes ago, and then it cuts to the bomb. But then again, another thing about this film is it took risks. Blew up New York. It, you know, made Rorschach get killed, and or maybe that happened in the comics. I don't know. This story of Watchmen. I didn't read the comics, and maybe I'll go into the show. I wonder if it's in the same universe, the show and the film. I watched like the first 20 minutes of the show. I'll go back and watch the show. But anyways, this film's great. It's really brilliant film. Really great one that I'll recommend. And it's crazy because it's just a standalone film. But you really do get so much in that 2 hour and 43 minute time frame, because the film is told in a way where, again, it only really shows key important information of each character and then really focuses on their interactions and the story at hand and, all that stuff. So it's a really great film. I really like it. Really love it. Whatever. Stay tuned for our videos coming right at you.